So I'll give you lectures on 2 topics for this morning. It's on obstetrical imaging and the prenatal diagnosis. This is quite long and difficult to understand, so we'll just make it very simple. Okay. All right. So how many are we now? 27. So may kulang pang mga more or less less than 10. Okay. All right. We'll start. So obstetrical imaging. So what is ultrasound? So basically, this is the lecture for this morning. The imaging and what is being used in obstetric is ultrasound. Basically, we use ultrasound. And then towards the end, there's also a slide on the MRI. But basically, we use the ultrasound. So how does ultrasound works? Okay. So it needs, if you can see my arrow, it needs the piezoelectric crystals. So this is the one that will transform the electrical energy into the sound waves. So para ang dami niyang dadaanan, but basically, it's just a transformation of the electrical energy into sound waves by use of the transducer. So the one that I'm pointing at, can you see my arrow?
Yes, Doc.
Right. So the one that I'm pointing at, this is the transducer, the one that we put on the mommy's abdomen, but we have to put gel. So the gel will be the sort of the medium for it to be able to transform or see the image that we are looking at, no? So put a gel on the mommy's tummy, and then the electrical energy will be transferred into the sound waves, and then it will just pass through the CPU, and then at display, it will now show you the image of the baby. Although dito, sa image na ginawa ng slide nito, this is the ovary. It's not the baby's picture. But it will be shown on the monitor as a baby's picture. Right. So ultrasound refers to the sound waves traveling at a frequency above 20,000 hertz. So ang taas, no? Ang taas. The history actually of ultrasound started dun sa mga bats, yung mga paniki, di ba? Ang hearing nila ang taas-taas, no? So kaya dun yun ang point of reference nila. Kasi if ito, tayo po nag-usap o whisper, it's just even less than 5,000 hertz. Very, very lang sound na napoproduce natin. But the ultrasound is sound waves traveling at this frequency. Ganun kabilis. Okay. Now, pero you cannot hear any sound, no? It's just the sound waves, yung waves na na-form between the image you want to project and the what is shown on the monitor. Like this one, there's a baby here. There's also monitor is you see the baby. Now, there should be enough water also inside to be able to have a good resolution. Kasi kung walang water, the resolution is not good. So again, it travels at a frequency of 20,000 hertz. Now, it is safe as long as we follow the ALARA principle. When you say ALARA principle, as low as reasonably achievable. So you have to be sure that the indices that I will be showing later, the indices are at slow. Mababa ang mga indices. Now, it has been stated by these international guidelines or the international societies that there is no harm when you do ultrasound, even if paulit-ulit. Diba sa OB kasi, it's paulit-ulit ang ultrasound, first trimester, then you do it on the second trimester for the congenital anomaly screening, then you do it again on the third trimester. On low-risk patients, you can do it twice or 3 times in the whole 9 months. But for high-risk patients, you do it as often as every week or every 2 weeks. And it has been proven that it is safe. And there is no relationship between any adverse effect on the human pregnancy. Dati kasi they are showing that merong nagkakaroon daw ng autism. But there's none. It has not been proven that it can cause autism. And other studies have shown that it can cause the baby to be left-sided, yung maging left-handed. But the study did not control other variables. So until now, there's no proven harm if you do ultrasound. So these are the indices that are important. The thermal index, it measures the relative probability of raising the temperature high enough to induce injury. Kaya ito laging tinitingnan. As sonologists, like I do ultrasound, so we always check the thermal index, the TI. It's located on the right portion of the screen. So it should be low because it's there is a parang contention that if the temperature is very high, the thermal index is very high, it may cause fetal injury. No? And then the mechanical index, that's the MI, it measures the likelihood of adverse effects due to cavitation. Kaya lang yung cavitation, there should be gas inside. Wala namang gas sa loob. Kaya hindi affected yung baby with the MI. It's just a thermal index. Now, thermal index is increased when we use the pulse Doppler, Wilbur Doppler studies, or we use the 3D or the 4D. Otherwise, if you just use the grayscale, yung black and white lang na makikita natin, it's very low. So it's safe. Okay. So what are the indications of doing an ultrasound? Number one is to confirm the age and the viability. It's very important that we have a proper aging, especially for patients with irregular menses. Pupunta sa'yo, irregular yung menses niya, hindi niya sure kung kailan siya nag-last mens, o kaya she forgot her LMP, di ba? Ito yung mga unplanned pregnancies. And then, when you do ultrasound, minsan mali ang age of gestation na sinasabi ng pasyente with the ultrasound. So we always follow the ultrasound aging, especially on the first trimester. We want to detect or characterize the abnormalities in the fetus. So this is done on the second trimester. You do congenital anomaly screening. So you check the baby from the head to toe. You check for everything that there's no abnormality, the amniotic fluid, and the location of the placenta. Very important din ang placenta. Kung saan siya nag-form. Kasi because we have previa, di ba? It can cause hemorrhage. And then assist with diagnostic and therapeutic purposes. Now, for us, kaming mga perinatologists or high-risk specialists, we usually do like amniocentesis or amnioreduction, or we even get blood from the umbilical cord. So it should be ultrasound guided. Hindi pwedeng blind procedure. It should be an ultrasound guided. So basically, these are the general indications. Now, in assessing the gestational age, it should be based on the LMP. Okay. Kung minsan hindi alam ng pasyente yung kanyang LMP, so we have to get the accurate aging by looking at the measurements on the first ultrasound. From less than 9 weeks, halimbawa 6 weeks to 13 and 6 days, 13 weeks and 6 days, you use the CRL, round rump length. Pag 14 weeks onwards, you use the BPD, head circumference, AC, and FL. So most often, this is a fair bit question in your exam. Which among the different biometric parameters do you use in measuring the gestational age, let's say at 10 weeks? Sir, your answer should be round rump length. So after 14 weeks, it's BPD, head circumference, AC, and the FL. Now there's a difference. For example, if you do an ultrasound, 7 weeks, tapos may more than 5 days difference from the last menstrual period, you follow the aging based on the ultrasound, not the LMP. Okay? Yun ang ibig sabihin na may threshold value to redate. So if you do the ultrasound, let's say 12 weeks, tapos sa ultrasound, lumalabas more than 7 days ang difference, you follow the ultrasound aging. Pero kung less than 5 days or less than 7 days, you still follow the due date based on the LMP. So crown rump length is the most accurate method to establish the age. Okay? So as I've said, it's measured until the 13th and 6/7 weeks, and very accurate within 5 to 7 days. That's how we measure the CRL from the rump, from the crown to the rump. Hindi kasama yung mga lower extremities, hindi kasama yung yolk sac. Kasi minsan ito, like this one, if you see the picture, there's a brown thing here, that's the yolk sac. So dapat hindi siya nasasama. So from the rump, sa may bandang puwet ng baby, until the crown. So, and the baby should be a little dorsiflex position. Now, the BPD is also used from 14 to 26 weeks with a 7 to 10 day variation. So among all the rest of the biometric measurements, after 14 weeks, you can use the biparietal diameter. Okay? Yung femur length, you can also use the femoral length because this is consistent. The femoral length is not affected by any problems like fetal growth disorders. Pero pag merong mga skeletal dysplasia, dwarfism, di ba? Yung mga ganun, maliliit na extremities, rhizomelic or micromelia, the extremities are short. So you cannot use this for accurate aging. But if the baby is normal, then you can also use femur length because it's not affected by the growth disorder. As against the abdominal circumference, this is affected by the growth disorder. For example, you have a very small baby, growth-restricted baby, the AC will be small. Or if you have a baby that is big, macrosomic, your AC will be big. For example, you are doing ultrasound, let's say 22 weeks. The biparietal diameter and the femoral length are 22 weeks, comparable to 22 weeks also. But the AC, let's say the AC is only 18 weeks. So may 4 weeks discrepancy. So you know that you're now dealing with a small baby. Or the baby is 22 weeks pero ang AC niya 26 weeks. So you're dealing with a big baby. Now why? Because it is where, di ba dyan ang liver, when you do the AC, if you're doing the AC, if you can follow my pointer, this is the stomach, this is the portal hepatis, and this is the liver. So nandyan yung liver sa loob ng AC. So when you do your abdominal circumference, you will see it will tell you if the baby is appropriately, yung growth niya is appropriate based on the abdominal circumference. Because the liver nga, as I've said, is included in the AC, so there is increased glycogen storage if you have a macrosomia, and decrease naman yan kung fetal growth kasi ginagamit niya yung glycogen para maging glucose, especially in babies who are small. Okay, so first trimester ultrasound. Why do we do a first trimester ultrasound? As I've mentioned, we want to check for the aging. So ito, you want to check the size of the baby. Ito, very, very early pregnancy, siguro 5 weeks lang to, kaya makikita mo lang yolk sac. Okay. And then we want to check if there's twins, and we want to check what type of twinning. Di ba yung mga lambda sign? We're saying if this is the sign, this is a dichorionic twin. So very important, proper yung chorionicity kasi di ba yung perinatal outcome will be different if we're dealing with a monochorionic placentation against a dichorionic. You also want to check if there are masses in the uterus, or if there are this is a picture of polycystic ovary. You also want to check if there's any pathology in the ovary. Now, this is a picture of a big sac, mega yolk sac. Pag mega yolk sac, walang babying nakita, it occupies almost the size is the same as the gestational sac. You know that this is a sign of an early pregnancy failure. So these are the indications of doing the first trimester ultrasound. The age, you want to confirm is there's an intrauterine. You rule out ectopic pregnancy. Kasi minsan pag may dumating na pasyente, first trimester, wala pang check-up, may bleeding, may pain, you always think of a possible ectopic pregnancy. Okay. And then you also have to confirm the aging, the activity. When do you think is the cardiac activity is seen on ultrasound? Around 6 weeks. Another question, if you do an ultrasound, when do you expect to see the heartbeat? You usually see it at around 6 weeks. And then you check multifetal gestation. If there are already anomalies, even in the first trimester, pwede na kasing makita kung walang skull yung baby, like in an anencephaly. You also check for the nuchal translucency, which we will do later. Abnormalities, ectopic, if you have GTD, gestational trophoblastic disease, o yung mga partial mole, positive ang pregnancy test, even complete mole, positive ang pregnancy test. But if you do ultrasound in a complete mole, you don't see any baby. It's just a conglomeration of mga cystic vesicles. Kasi yung siya, H mole. Or if it's a partial mole, there's a fetus, pero rin siya, may cystic degeneration of this cystic trophoblast. No? And then if there's a bleeding, the pelvic pain, and an adjunct to embryo transfer. Ngayon kasi, di ba, marami na nag-IVF. So these are the indications for doing an ultrasound for those doing the IVF. And then if we do chorionic villus sampling, yung mga procedures, you have to localize or look for the IUD that was misplaced. Okay. So in the first trimester at 5 weeks, you only see the gestational sac. Okay, yung gestational sac is this one, yung bilog. Okay, and if you notice may puti sa paligid, and that's the double decidual sign. So if you see a double decidual sign, that will confirm a good chance for this pregnancy to be viable. Okay, so 5 weeks, you only see the GS, and you will able to see the yolk sac. Okay, 6 weeks, very important to remember. At 6 weeks, you will be able to see the cardiac activity. Meron ng heartbeat. And this is the baby, the CRL. We are measuring the CRL. Ang bilis ng paglaki ng baby on the first trimester, no? Yung first trimester ultrasound, you will see a dramatic change in the length or in the size of the embryo. Now, this is the one that I'm talking about, the nuchal translucency. This is done between 11 to 14 weeks. Okay. Now, why do we check this? Because if it's thick, will be discussed in the other lecture on the prenatal diagnosis. If this is thick, then you think of aneuploidy. It's an important parameter to check for aneuploidy. So it is measured from the at this portion, doon sa likod ng kanyang nuchal area until the translucent area below the nuchal portion. So pag makapal siya, there's a 3 millimeter cutoff. It's more than 3 millimeters, then you think of a possible aneuploidy. But when we measure this, we have to be careful that we don't measure it until the chorion. Kasi may chorion dyan sa ilalim, di ba? Amnion, chorion is, remember, in our lecture in the placental formation, you have the amnion and the chorion. Nag-fuse yung amnion and chorion at 13 weeks. So if you don't ultrasound before 13 weeks, baka mapagkamalaan yung dulo nitong nuchal translucency dun sa chorion, then it will give you a false result, makapal. Okay? All right. So assessment of fetal abnormalities in high-risk pregnancy can be done at 12 to 14 weeks. Pwede na. In fact, in other countries, they're doing it on the first trimester. But you can still miss some major abnormalities if you do it on the first trimester. Kasi, for example, this heart, the very, very small pa ang heart. So you might miss some cardiac anomalies. But basic, like for example, yung sinabi ko kanina, anencephaly. You can see an encephalic baby in the early first trimester because you won't have a fetal skull. Wala kang makikitang skull. Okay. Now, the second trimester, what is important, most parents would do an ultrasound the second trimester basically for the gender. Ngayon uso na yung gender reveal. So magpapa-ultrasound sila just to have that gender. Pero syempre, ayaw nilang malaman kasi it's gender reveal. Nakapikit yung mga mata habang ino-ultrasound because they don't want to see the gender. So this is part na of their parang, di ba, bonding with the family. And also, it's not, I usually tell my patients who just go there for a gender reveal, I usually tell them this is not an indication for ultrasound. The indication for the ultrasound second trimester is to check for any abnormalities. Kumbaga, napasama lang yung gender. But just going to an ultrasound just for checking the gender is not an indication for ultrasound. Okay. So these are the indications for the second and third trimester ultrasound. You want to check the anatomy of the baby, the size. If you're now dealing with a congenital anomaly or a fetal growth restriction or a macrosomia, and then you want to follow up. May nakita kang hydrocephalus or ventriculomegaly, ibig sabihin may fluid sa brain ng baby. You follow it up kasi baka dumadami na yung fluid na yun. From ventriculomegaly or the abnormality or the dilatation of the lateral ventricles, magiging na siyang hydrocephalus. You will also want to check the length of the cervix and then the rest of the indications as it is presented in this slide. Okay. So in the second and third trimester, you do detailed and third trimester ultrasound examination, especially if you're dealing with abnormalities. Fetal echo. Now, fetal echo is indicated, hindi laging, not all patients or not all mothers who come in for ultrasound of fetal echo, but sonologists usually do a basic fetal echocardiography. Tinitingnan yung size ng heart, the axis, if there's 4-chamber view, and then just check all the things that are needed to be checked. Pag may nakita ng problema, then nire-refer na for a complete fetal echocardiography. Okay? So, kasi minsan baka may nami-miss, meron palang congenital heart disease, and it will be a big, it will be a big problem if na-miss yung diagnosis at birth. Now, limited ultrasound examination refers to for example, you just want to focus on the heart. Hindi mo natitingnan yung ibang parte. Okay? Fetal anomaly detection and then the 3D ultrasound examination. Now, the 3D ultrasound, ito naman, most often, nire-request ng mga parents because they want to look at the picture of the baby, di ba? Inaano na nila yan, ginagawa na nila yung mga picture, piniframe na. But basically, it should be also for congenital anomalies. For example, you see a baby with a cleft lip. So you do a 3D ultrasound to be able to verify that cleft lip. Kung may abnormality nakita, we do 3D ultrasound. But minsan it is just being used again for bonding of the parents with the child. Pwede naman we allow that. Pero basically it should be used for medical education. So this is a 3D 4D picture. So ito baby na naka-smile or naka-big laugh. And then these are some of the pictures of the different pictures at different age of gestation. And this is what I'm saying, if you see a cleft lip, if you don't ultrasound, 3D ultrasound, kitang-kita yung cleft lip. So this is cleft lip and palate hanggang sa loob. So that is the use of the 3D, 4D ultrasound. Ito, look at this 28 weeks, nakasmile yung baby. We see ultrasound of twins na minsan, even if there's a compartment between them, para sila magkayakap. And it's so nice to look at these pictures, live pictures of these babies. So the problem with 3D and 4D ultrasound is there should be a lot of amniotic fluid to be able to get better visualization. For example, you want to focus on the face, dapat maraming tubig sa face, wala siyang placenta nakaharang doon or may kamay because you won't get a good picture. And then it lengthens the time for completion, and then we are worried about the thermal index. Okay. So as been mentioned, the ACOG concluded that a proof of clinical advantage of 3D ultrasound for prenatal diagnosis is still lacking kasi nalalengthen yung time. But for congenital anomalies, then you can utilize the 3D ultrasound. Okay. We also check the placenta and the cervix. We evaluate the anatomical relationship of the placenta and the internal cervical os. So kung nakaharang yung placenta, then you have previa. The umbilical cord insertion is also important, especially on the first or second trimester. Gusto mong tingnan saan nakakabit yung umbilical cord into the placenta. Kasi if it's in the marginal insertion, nasa gilid, marginal, you expect hindi masyado lalaki ang baby. Or you would expect baka magkaroon siya ng vasa previa. When you say vasa previa, the vessel would now run into the amniotic fluid, amniotic, in the amnion. So pag nag-rupture ang bag o pag nag-rupture, kapag natamaan mo yung vessel na yun, it can cause fetal bleeding or exsanguination. And the cervical length. So we always check the cervical length, especially those with previous history of preterm birth. And then you evaluate for placenta accreta. When you say placenta accreta, nakadikit yung placenta into the myometrium. So this should be antenatally diagnosed. Otherwise, if you do assist repeats, usually you see this on patients with previous cesarean section. So if you do a repeat section and you didn't, there was no ultrasound or diagnosis of placenta accreta, you will have torrential bleeding. Kasi you try to deliver that placenta and nakakabit siya or pumasok siya sa myometrium, then you'll have so much bleeding intraoperatively. Okay. So this is a picture of a low-lying placenta. This is the cervical canal. Just follow the pointer, my pointer. So this is the cervical canal. So if you see, this is the placenta. So nasa gilid lang siya. So this is a low-lying placenta. Okay. And this is a complete previa. So this is the cervix, cervical canal or the cervical length. And this is the placenta. And then it go beyond the cervix hanggang naging anterior. There's an overlap. From posterior, nag-anterior yung placenta, ito yung 2 arrows. So, dumaan siya doon sa cervix, natakpan niya yung cervix. And this is what we call placenta previa. And this is dangerous, especially pag nag-bleed ang mother can also cause heavy bleeding. Now, this is the placenta accreta. Ibig sabihin yung placenta, ito, like this one, went through the myometrium. Pumasok na siya sa muscle of the uterus, and then you will see a lot of vascular flow or very high vascular vessels at the area of the placenta, near the serosa. So this is the patient's bladder, and this is the lower segment. So makita mo ang daming vessels dyan. And if you open this up, kita mo yung tinatawag namin bag of worms. When you open up, kita mo ang lalaki ng vessels. So you're now dealing with an accreta. And this picture here showed the head of the baby, and there's the placenta here. Usually, placenta accreta comes with previa. Kasi dyan nakalagay yung placenta. So kitang-kita mo dito yung the placenta now erodes until the serosa. Malapit na sa bladder. And this is a cesarean section scar pregnancy. Yung pregnancy nabuo siya or was located near the cervix, kung saan yung may niche, kung saan yung dating may kung saan dati nagkaroon ng incision because you did a lower segment cesarean section, nandoon yung pregnancy. So it's a CS scar pregnancy. So this is the patient's bladder, and this is the lower segment, and you will see here the implantation of the gestational sac. Nandoon sa CS scar. Okay, now we also measure the cervical length from 16 weeks onwards, especially those with previous preterm births. Another you have to remember is this number 16 weeks and the 25 millimeters. So if you say it's a short cervix, it should be less than 25 millimeters. So if you see a cervix less than 25 millimeters at 16 weeks onwards, these are the patients that you can prognosticate that they were delivered prematurely. And this is usually it's best to measure it transvaginally, hindi transabdominal. It should be transvaginal ultrasound. Okay? Kasi minsan affected siya kung transab, ang ginawa mo at maraming ibig sabihin hindi umihi yung pasyente, it will lengthen the length of the cervix. So you have to do it transvaginally at pinaihi si mommy before doing the procedure. Now, in cervical length assessment, you will be able to see if there is funneling. Ito yung funneling, bumuka na. Protrusion of the amniotic sac into the portion of the endocervical canal. So this is the amniotic membrane, pumasok na siya sa canal. So that is what we call funneling. So magsa-shorten na ang functional length of the cervix. Short na siya. Hindi mo na siya i-measure from here to that area. Doon na lang kung saan yung nag-start na yung after the funneling. So it shortens the functional length of the cervix. And sometimes we see sludge or debris. Minsan may makikita ditong parang mga puti-puti at this portion. Para siya may echogenic structure here, and that is the sludge. And it represents particulate matter within the amniotic sac. And this is also a marker for preterm delivery. So if you are asked in the exam, what are the parameters or how do you know that the patient will go into preterm delivery? Short cervix, the presence of funneling, and sludge or debris. Now, let's go to the amniotic fluid. So basically, this is the purpose of the amniotic fluid. Remember, this was in your physiology lecture in the placenta. So it's basically used the baby uses this for breathing. So ito pumapasok ito sa lungs and it helps in the development of the lungs. Kaya nga yung mga oligohydramnios, yung walang tubig at the early on of pregnancy, the lungs are not developed. You have a pulmonary hypoplasia. So fetal swallowing, it helps in the gastrointestinal movement, musculoskeletal maturation, guards against cord compression, protects the fetus from any trauma, and it has a bacteriostatic. So it protects the baby from any, there should be intact to protect the baby from any microbial invasion. So early in pregnancy, the amniotic fluid composition is that of the extracellular fluid. So nagkakaroon lang ng transudate of plasma from the fetus through its skin from the mother. So sa first trimester, latent transudation from the mother. On the second and the third trimester, it's basically from the fetal urination. Kidneys are already functional on the first trimester, towards the end of the first trimester. So umiihi na siya. So it will now become the primary source of the amniotic fluid. And if you do fetal swallowing, no? Pag kasi hindi naman pwedeng ihi lang siya ng ihi, so mapupuno na yung amniotic cavity. So the baby also swallow because this is a sterile fluid. So yung iniihi niya, iniinom din niya, sinaswallow. And these are the ones that are important for the development of the lungs, the GIT. And then, sa renal. Tapos iihi niya ulit yan. Okay? So the amniotic fluid volume at 10 weeks is just 30 cc, and then it gradually increase, and even at third trimester, pwede siya maging 1 liter. So if there's no amniotic fluid or decrease in amount, you term that as oligohydramnios. If it is abnormally increased, then you term that as polyhydramnios or hydramnios. Now, this is how we measure the amniotic fluid. So you have a 4-quadrant. So 4-quadrant. So mini-measure siya, hinahati yung tummy ni mommy. So you measure here. This is the, or you can start from the lower or upper. So this is Q1, quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4, or any order. So you get it in the 4 quadrants, the biggest pocket that you can get in the 4 quadrants. Or you can get it by single vertical pocket. You look for the deepest pocket that you can see, and then you measure the fluid. Basta lang, when you measure the fluid, there should be nothing in between. Wala siyang fetal parts. Hindi siya pwede sa ilalim ng fetal parts. So it's from the if there is the placenta here, from the placenta down to the uterine wall. There should be nothing in between when you measure the amniotic fluid. And what is the purpose of the Doppler? Why do we do Doppler? This is to determine the volume and rate of blood flow through the maternal and fetal vessels. Okay, so this is indicated for patients with fetal growth restriction. And again, another fair bit question in the exam. Among the following condition, which condition is Doppler velocimetry indicated? So for example, may polyhydramnios doon, may oligohydramnios, fetal growth restriction, or macrosomia. Your answer should be fetal growth restriction. Okay. Now, what is being determined in the Doppler studies? This is used to check the hemodynamic response of the fetus during, kaya nga ginagamit sa fetal growth restriction because you want to know the fetal adaptation to uteroplacental insufficiency. So that's the reason why we use Doppler studies. Now, this is the umbilical artery. This is one of the or the initial vessel that you want to interrogate. So this is the umbilical cord, and you have here the fetal vessels, 2 arteries and 1 vein. So you get the umbilical artery, and this is what will come out if you do your Doppler studies. This is the systolic flow, and this is the diastolic flow. Systolic would coincide with the heart contraction, and then the diastole will be the heart relaxation. So the basic principle in the interpretation of Doppler velocimetry depends on the ang mini-measure natin velocity, the blood flow into the vessel. Okay, so when you put in the transducer, you'll be able to see the flow of the flow of blood within the vessel. So for example, you have a patient with this is a uterine artery. This is a notch. Although pare-pareho lang ito. This is, for example, this is the uterine artery. You see here a notch. So, ibig sabihin, meron siyang resistance. Let's say this is a normal. Although may nakikita akong notch, but let's say this is a normal. The diastolic flow should be high. Pag bumaba ang diastolic flow, ibig sabihin, masikip yung dinadaanan ng blood flow. So, may constriction yung vessel. Okay? And this is just baliktad lang yung pag-interrogate ng letter D. So when you look at, this is the middle cerebral artery kasi this is the BPD, di ba? It's the BPD. So when you are doing a Doppler study, I'll go back to the previous slide. When we are doing a Doppler study, minsan hirap intindihin. So you just think of a parang traffic, no? Traffic. For example, let's say an example dito sa Commonwealth, di ba? Malaki ang ano natin, ang kalsada, di ba? Mga 3, 4, 5 lanes. Okay. Right. So, ang mga sasakyan, although ngayon restricted na tayo more than 60 ang takbo natin, pero if you have a big lane, if you have a wide road and several lanes, the flow of the cars are mabilis. Kasi wide ang lane eh. Okay. So, ganun din siya sa flow niya. If you have a wide vessel, there's a fast movement of the blood. Kaya it will show on the diastole as maganda ang diastolic flow, normal. But if you have let's say, nagkaroon na siya along that sa area ng like for example, sa area ng may ever or sa una-unahang pa, di ba sumisikip, nagiging 3 lanes or 2 lanes, then you will see that the flow of the traffic will be slow. It will now be manifested as lower diastolic flow. Kung nagkaroon ng nawala na ng blood flow, magkakaroon na siyang absent flow. Wala na magfo-flow doon. And then eventually magre-reverse na. Okay? As you will see in the succeeding slide. So this is the picture of the MCA, middle cerebral artery. The middle cerebral artery normally is mataas ang systolic flow, mababa ang diastolic flow. Kasi normal lang na may pumupuntang blood flow to the brain, but hindi naman kailangan ni baby ng very high flow to the brain. Kaya mababa lang siya. Okay, so what is being said in the principles of the interpretation is, the higher the waveform, the faster the movement of the red blood cell. So pag wide ang pag wide ang vessel, makikita mo maganda, mabilis ang flow, kaya mataas ang diastolic flow. Okay, so vasodilated vessels have increased velocity of RBCs and higher waveforms. Para yung sabi ko kanina, traffic, pag wide ang road, mabilis ang daan ng mga sasakyan. Okay. Now, in the presence of high resistance, ibig sabihin, mas masikip yung dadaanan ng blood, there will be crowding or traffic of the red blood cells. So what happened is there will be decreased flow or slowing down of the blood as it enters the the vessel. So bababa ngayon ang diastolic flow, bababa ngayon ito. And this is better seen by yung isa kanina na talagang bagsak siya. Okay? And this is due to the vasoconstriction or obstructed vessel giving you a low waveform. So again, this is the systolic flow. This is the diastolic flow. Okay? This is the temporal average frequency over one cardiac cycle. So pag may mga Doppler indices, what is being measured is the resistance index, the Porcello index, and the SD systolic diastolic ratio. Okay? So these are the different types of the indices, and these are the formula on how to get this. You don't need to remember this one because it will just appear. When we do Doppler, bigla ano na lang siya ang computer na nag-compute. Okay, so it will just appear. The RI, SI, and the PI will appear on the computer. Okay, so these are the vessels being interrogated: the umbilical artery, the ductus arteriosus, the uterine artery, the middle cerebral artery, and the ductus venosus. Now, the umbilical artery, as I've mentioned, we have 3 vessels. Yung red, blue sa red, hindi ibig sabihin that's the artery and the vein. No. When you see red on Doppler studies, it only shows that the blood flow is towards the vessel. Pag blue, baliktad, the blood flow is towards your transducer. Yun lang yun. Okay. So umbilical artery, normally it should be a good diastolic flow. Mataas ang diastolic flow if you have a normal non-constricted vessel. This is the umbilical vein. Ang makikita mo lang sa umbilical vein is straight line. Pag nagkaroon siya ng mga pulsations, then that is not good. That is ominous. So the umbilical artery, as I've been describing for the past 5 minutes, it's normal. Ito ang normal, mataas ang diastolic flow. Tapos magdi-decrease, decrease, magiging absent. And then it will be reversed. So parang imagine ulit natin ang traffic, pag maganda ang blood flow, mabilis yung sasakyan. Pag nagkaroon ng vasoconstriction, babagal, decrease diastolic flow. Pag nagkaroon na ng the vessels are now too narrow to pass, wala nang dadaan, di ba? Absent na. Kung wala nang dadaan, some of the cars will just reverse. Babalik na lang sila o hindi na sila dadaan doon kasi wala nang madaanan. It will be shown as a reverse flow. Okay? And this is ominous, and the baby may die in 3 to 5 days if you have a reverse flow in the diastolic flow. Okay? And if the baby is breathing, you will be able to see this. So hindi siya abnormal. Grabe lang yung breathing ng baby. Okay? Now, ductus arteriosus is actually part of the interrogation of the Doppler studies. We only check that on patients on indomethacin or NSAIDs. These are medicines na for preterm labor or to decrease the amniotic fluid. So, pwede kasi siya magkaroon ng theoretically cause ductal constriction or closure of the ductus arteriosus. And we should remember na importante ang ductus arteriosus, diba? Because this is the shunt na hindi siya pupunta sa pulmonary circulation kasi hindi naman functioning pa ang pulmonary fetal lung. So pupunta na siya from the right ventricle, diretso na siya sa systemic circulation. So this closure of that ductus arteriosus may result to increase in pulmonary hypertension, to the development of pulmonary hypertension. Uterine artery, this is a normal uterine artery. So usually we check this after 22 weeks. If there is a notch, ibig sabihin may vasoconstriction. So the presence of a notch, now remember this again, the presence of a notch in the uterine artery means there is vasoconstriction. And it can prognosticate na pwede si patient magkaroon ng preeclampsia or fetal growth restriction. Again, this is a fair bit question. The presence of a notch is means that there is vasoconstriction and can prognosticate that the patient might have preeclampsia or fetal growth restriction. Kaya nga sa mga patients high risk for preeclampsia and fetal growth restriction, they are being given aspirin on the 12th week dun sa trophoblastic invasion. So to prevent this notching, para hindi mag-vasoconstrict. Okay? Middle cerebral artery, normally ito yung sasabi ko normal, parang baliktad siya ng umbilical artery. Now in the middle cerebral artery, you have the systolic diastolic flow, and you have systolic flow, and you have the diastolic flow. And if you can see the diastolic flow, mababa talaga. That's normal. That's normal. Mababa ang diastolic flow in the middle cerebral artery. So again, question in the exam, for example, which of the following vessels would give you a low diastolic flow, which is considered normal? Umbilical artery, MCA, or ductus venosus? Your answer should be MCA. Kasi mababa talaga ang diastolic flow sa MCA. Now, when does it become mataas? When does where would then be an increase in the diastolic flow in the middle cerebral artery? So it happens when there is now this one, adaptation to oxygen deprivation, or you call it preferential shunting, or redistribution of blood at the expense of other organs. So what does it mean? If there is hypoxemia, if there is less oxygen, uteroplacental insufficiency, kulang yung oxygen na pumupunta sa baby, so you will see the umbilical artery to be decreased, di ba? Yung diastolic flow sa umbilical artery, bababa. Pero ang gagawin kasi ni baby, it will now do a compensatory mechanism. So ang gagawin niya, it will now shunt, preferential shunting of the blood flow towards the more vital organs like the brain, the heart, and the adrenals. So doon pupunta yung blood flow, head, the brain, the heart, and the adrenals, and less to the kidneys, to the lower extremities, to the lungs. Kaya nga, less ang punta sa kidneys, mag-uuligo si baby. Kulang, di ba, bababa na amniotic fluid niya. Hindi siya malikot kasi less ang blood flow to the lower extremities or sa lungs. So yung naman pinuntahan niya ng dugo, like for example, the brain, tataas ngayon yung diastolic flow because there are more oxygen coming in. So tataas yung diastolic flow. So if you see a increased diastolic flow in the middle cerebral artery, it big sabihin there's already a preferential shunting. The baby's in a compensatory state. Remember those principles. Okay, so when there's fetal growth restriction, you use the middle cerebral artery to say that the baby is already adapting to the hypoxia. Kaya nga ang Doppler study is a hemodynamic adaptation of the fetus, and it helps us in the timing of delivery. So pag mataas na yung diastolic flow, the baby now is compensating. Now the other use of the middle cerebral artery is for anemia. So instead of doing the chordocentesis and everything, you now do your Doppler study of the MCA and check if the baby is anemic by looking at the peak systolic velocity. If it's more than 1.5 median of moles, then you have a baby with anemia. Meron siyang table that there's a reference value. So again, remember these two. The middle cerebral artery is used for fetal growth restriction surveillance and for identifying fetal anemia. Now the ductus venosus is a triphasic. You have the S, the D, and the A. Systolic, diastolic, and atrial contraction. Okay, the A. Okay, and this, the nadir or the waveform usually occurs during the atrial contraction. Now this is very important also in determining when is the best time to deliver the baby. Kasi pag normal pa yung umbilical artery, ay pag pangit na yung umbilical artery, I should say, pangit na yung umbilical artery, but your ductus still normal, then you can still buy time. Pwede ka pa maghintay. Okay? So these are the patterns in identifying babies. This is a normal ductus venosus, S, the D, and the A. Pag nag-deepening na o nag-reverse, pangit na. Okay? So this is absent, A-wave, or the reverse. Mag-deepen muna bago mag-absent, tapos mag-reverse na siya. These are mga pangit na ductus venosus. So this is a reflection of cardiac dysfunction. Meron na siyang myocardial ischemia, nagkakaroon na siyang cardiac dysfunction. So if the ductus is now abnormal, then you have to deliver the baby. Okay, now MRI, we use this MRI, although it is based on the excitation of hydrogen ions in the body. Although we seldom use MRI, we only use MRI for mothers kasi this does not have any radiation, di ba, compared to the CT scan, kaya safe siya sa buntis. But this is indicated only for patients na you want to check for mga evaluate other fetal abnormalities. For example, well, it has a higher resolution, yes, and less hindered by the bony interfaces. Kahit mataba si mami, may mga bony interfaces, oligohydramnios, makikita pa rin. Unlike sa ultrasound, it will give you a not so good view, especially if the mommy is obese. And then it complements ultrasound in evaluating fetal abnormalities. For example, you have a fetal neck mass. Ang laki-laki ng mass sa neck ng baby. So you can do your MRI to check if there's already tracheal compression. And then you can evaluate the maternal pelvic masses or placental invasion, yung mga akrita, yun makikita yun. It will help you in the mapping where the placenta is. Okay? It's time-consuming and limited to referral centers with expertise in fetal imaging. Okay? So this comprises the first part of our lecture. So we'll follow it with a second lecture after a 5-minute break. Okay? Any questions on the obstetric imaging? So kulang tayo. Ilan nga lahat tayo, Dominic?
32 po do.
32. So kulang tayo ng 2, no?
Dalawa po.
So just take note of who is absent. All right. So we start at 7:55. It's 7:50 for the next lecture on prenatal diagnosis. Are there any questions first? Any questions on obstetric imaging? Lahat kayo naka-close yung camera. Any question? Yes? Questions? Okay. All right. So let's pause for a while.